If you have made it this far, well done. You have covered a lot. And now we are in the chapter where we will make our application fully functional. We're about to dive into CRUD operations, and we will ensure that we handle them as efficient as possible. CRUD stands for Create, Read, Update, and Delete. You may have already noticed that we have done some creating and reading. For example, fetching and displaying data is reading and adding new users is creating. But there is still plenty to learn about CRUD operations. Before we jump into this territory, let's improve our data fetching logic a little bit. Currently, inside SRC, pages, projects, index.view, this is how we fetch all projects. We have a local state to store the projects, and then we have a function that we trigger, and then it fetches that data from the database. And in the browser, it works perfectly fine. Here's our data. If we navigate away, navigate back, here's our data. If we do a hard refresh, here's our data. So it gets the job done. But notice when we navigate away and then we navigate back, it keeps the loading state, right? It has to go back to the database and then fetch the new data and display it on the browser. But what if that's not what we want? We don't want the user to wait again when they navigate back to the page. You see this waiting? We want to get rid of that and allow them to see the data immediately because it already loaded before. So I want to cache the first response the user gets when they visit this page, store it in the app, and once they visit this same page again, they don't have to wait and they get an instant view of the page content. And we can easily make this happen with Pinia. So let's do a very simple implementation here that will cache the response and will avoid triggering the fetch request again and just immediately render the response that the user previously had. I'll head to the stores directory and I'll create a new directory here and I call it loaders. And the reason why I'm separating this from others is that those loaders has one task, which is fetching data. So they don't just store things, they even fetch things. That's what they will be responsible for. So inside this directory, I'll create a new file called projects.ts. And that file will be a normal store. So export const use projects store, and that will be define store. I'll pass the first argument as the key, so projects store. And then the second argument is a callback, which is the setup function. And from this one, I'll return or expose anything I want to be exposed globally. The first thing I need is to copy over the state, which is the project state, along with the function inside this new store. So I'll paste them here and import what needs to be imported. So the projects, I'll import that from the utils superqueries file. And the projects query, I'll import that from superqueries, but I don't like inline type imports, so I'll change that. I'll import it on its own line. So import projects query from utils superqueries. I really don't know if there is some configuration option that I can do to prevent any inline type importing, but anyway, that's not our problem now. And then I'll expose the projects along with get projects function and save. Now back to the page. I'll create a new constant to use my store. So that will be project loader use projects store. I would have named it use projects loader, but I kept it as a store because this is the common naming convention for stores. And I would like anyone to look at this code base will understand that this is a store. Anyway, I need two things from that store. The first thing is the project state. So I will destruct that projects out of stores to refs projects store right there. So now I'm providing the projects as I used to. The next thing I want is to get the get projects function. I'll destruct that out of the projects loader. Oh, actually, this is not use project store. This should be the projects loader like this. Awesome. So now I have everything I need. Let me get rid of any unneeded import right here and save. Go back to the browser, do a hard refresh just to make sure that it works, navigate away, navigate back, everything works the same way it used to. No differences. And that's because I'm doing the same thing. I keep calling the fetch request every time I visit this page. But I can change that. I can go back to my store and add one line over here. I can say if the projects value already had any length or any data. I don't want to trigger any fetch request. I want to skip the fetch request. Let me move that. So when the get projects is triggered, this if condition will find out if we already have projects or not. And if we do have projects already fetched before, we will not fetch the rest. We will early return. Now, in the browser, I'll do hard refresh. We got the data. I'll navigate away and then navigate back. You see this? The loading text over here, like if we throttle network and maybe like slow down the internet a little bit, and I'll navigate away, this is the loading state. If I navigate back to the projects page, you see that? It doesn't load. It instantly shows the data. And even here in the networks tab, if I visit the tasks page, I see the fetch request for the tasks. But if I do that for the projects page, I don't fetch anything. The data is right there in my application. This is great for the user experience, but it has downside. Users will keep seeing an old version of this page unless they do a hard refresh. If they never refresh, they are stuck with the first response they received. So follow me to the next lesson to fix this.